Energy Recovery System, or ERS as it's known by, is a mode that is used in F1 to turn an engine from a gas guzzler to a hybrid power unit. In F1 2019, your ERS is a usable booster to help you either overtake your opponent or to help defend against them and hold on to the lead. However, this isn't just a button that you press once for this to happen. It needs to be managed at all times. And whilst it sounds like a daunting task to be constantly looking after your ERS, it's actually rather simple. So sit back as we show you 5 easy tips to get you switching to manual ERS in no time at all. Before we get into how to manage and use ERS, firstly, we need to understand what it is and what it does. ERS, as we said before, stands for Energy Recovery System. And what this does, in basic terms, is convert kinetic energy from braking and heat energy from the turbo into an extra usable 160 brake horsepower. Now that is a lot of horses. However, you have a certain limit which you can use each lap. In F1 2019, you have 6 modes in which you can use that extra 160 brake horsepower. These are none or 0, low 1, medium 2, high 3, overtake 4, and finally hot lap 5. Switching between these modes will give you more speed, but remember, it will also deplete your ERS storage, so use it wisely. Only the F1 2019 cars have this system, so when it comes to Classic or F2, you won't need to worry about this. Step 1. What does it all mean? Right, so we have our 6 modes, but where are they on screen and how do we switch between them? In front of you, you will have 3 bars. Yellow, i.e. the important one, and 2 white. On the left of the yellow bar is the selected mode that you are in, and on the other side of the yellow bar is the amount of battery you have left. This is a number you need to keep an eye on as it does not reset each lap, and you don't want to get caught by another driver only to realise you have 2% left before a straight. So what do the other 2 bars do then? Well, D or deployment tracks how much ERS you use each lap. This isn't really useful during a race, but certainly comes in handy during qualifying, as you can track and make sure you don't run out during your flying lap. Finally, we have H or harvest, which tracks how much ERS you are regaining each lap. This feature isn't really that useful, but it's nice to see if you're harvesting more than you are using. Both bars, deployment and harvest, reset each lap. Right, now you know where it is, how do you use your 6 ERS modes? Located in the first menu of your MFD, you have 4 interactive panels. These are fuel mix, front brake bias, differential, and ERS deploy. Obviously, the one that we will be focusing on in today's lesson is the ERS deploy. Here you will find the 6 modes that you can switch between. This page of your MFD should be up at all times as you switch between ERS modes corner to corner and only really come away from it to look at varying data about your car. Step 2. Managing a lap in qualifying. Right, now we have all that boring technical stuff out of the way, let's get into the juicy stuff. When it comes to qualifying, it's very easy to assume you just stick your ERS into hot lap mode 5 and pump in your quickest lap times. And whilst that may work for most of the lap, chances are you will run out of deployment before you cross the line. This in turn will lose you time, and in F1 Esports, where 1/10 could be the difference between 1st and 5th, the last thing you want to be doing is throwing away time to your rivals. So how do we tackle this whilst also using the maximum amount of ERS available? The main thing to note is that you must not go lower than mode 3 and be clever about when you use each different mode. Start off by using mode 3 high in all critical traction zones across the circuit you are doing, overtake mode on the straights, and then use hot lap everywhere else. If you get to the end of the lap and still have deployment left, reduce the amount of corners that you use mode 3 and use mode 5 instead. Now keep repeating this process until you run out of ERS deployment just after crossing the line. Step 3. Start of a race. The start of the race can be quite hectic with the pack so close together and drivers squabbling for positions early on. So let's use our ERS to get the best possible position we can get at the start. To start off, use mode 4 during race starts. This will help you maximize your launch and acceleration from the start whilst not depleting the battery too much. As you start to go through the first couple of corners, adapt to what is going on around you. If you feel like your competitors are running away from you or putting you under pressure, then increase the amount of ERS you are using to help defend or stay with the pack. as chances are they are also using a high amount of ERS at the time. If you are starting the race from the front of the pack, it may be wise to use more ERS at the start to break away from the pack. If you can get out of the 1 second DRS gap, then it will make it harder for your rivals to catch you, and might also help as the driver in second will become vulnerable to battling with drivers behind, increasing your gap further. Remember, you can always harvest energy later on in the race when you have more free air. It will take a good 3 to 4 laps before drivers start to get into their usual rhythm of ERS management. Step 4, race management. Now this is probably the part you've all been waiting for, so let's jump into managing your ERS during a race. Now we all know the simple ways to recharge your battery, 0 ERS during safety cars and pit stops, etc. But what about when you're actually running at race pace? For example, let's say you're running in the middle of a race, but there is no one around you. How do you manage your ERS? Well, get into a rhythm in your head. Know what mode you need to be in for each corner and keep it that way for the duration of the race. Make sure you're not using too much though, because it's important to have a good amount of ERS at all times. That way you can increase and decrease usage depending on whether you are overtaking the car ahead or defending from the car behind. Medium or mode 2 is always a good starting point as it won't use too much and you'll more than likely find yourself using the same amount of energy as you are harvesting. But if you want to take it further, look to using mode 0 for hairpins and slow corners. Not only will this help you recover some ERS, but it will also help you to save tyre life too, which is always a bonus. Harvesting your ERS will vary from track to track. For example, circuits like Singapore or Monaco have more braking zones and corners, and very little long straights. This allows you to run in a higher ERS mode for longer as the battery will be recharged more often. This also means that you have to be careful on tracks like Monza or Austria that are the complete opposite and will deplete your battery much quicker. When it comes to long straights during a race, you want to be using hot lap or mode 5 in the acceleration zones and then overtake mode down the straight. ERS is much more effective at the start of a straight as there is more time to be gained from acceleration than there is in top speed. So make sure you are using a lower ERS mode at the end of every long straight, unless, of course, you're in a battle, and that leads us onto our final tip. Step 5, overtaking and defending. When it comes to overtaking or defending a position, ERS is a great tool to help you outsmart your opponents. Let's start with an overtake. So you arrive to the back of your opponent, what do you do? Now it would be very easy for you to assume you just stick it into overtake or hot lap mode until you've overtaken the car in front. However, you actually want to just keep doing what you were doing before. If you've already caught them up whilst you were in a normal rhythm, then chances are you are already faster than them. Your best bet is to wait till one of the DRS zones on track and go for the move there. Put the car into hot lap mode out of the corner leading onto the straight, activate DRS when available, and then go into mode 4 once in 6th gear. Now go for it. If you are side by side by the end of the straight, go back into mode 5 to get the best acceleration out of the following corner, and repeat until you have either finally got past them or they defend their position and you have to wait for round 2. If you use up all your ERS fighting the car ahead, don't worry too much, it doesn't mean the battle is over. Get back into the rhythm you were using before, but this time when following on the straights, sit in the slipstream and use mode 0. This will help you save ERS whilst the car ahead pulls you along the straight. Then once you have a good battery level, try the move again. Now defending your position is the same concept, except this time from another perspective. Just like with the overtaking, keep the rhythm you've been using so far in the race, except maybe increase the ERS a tiny bit over the lap. If you are using mode 0 for hairpins, maybe use mode 1 for example, but remember not to overuse it as you'll need some battery life for the straights. When arriving at a straight, you want to copy what we said about overtaking. Mode 5 at the start of a straight, then mode 4 during it before going back up to mode 5 if you are side by side when taking a corner. However, sometimes you may not always be able to defend your position and may just have to accept the driver behind is much faster than you are. This may be because of tyre or engine wear, so try not to beat yourself up about it. The best drivers are the ones that think about the race as a whole. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and the person who overtook you may suffer at the end of the race, so you can always get them back then. So that has been our tips for ERS management on F1 2019. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful and want more tips from us, then like and subscribe to the Veloce Esports channel, and feel free to check out all of our other Esports 101 videos. Don't forget to leave a comment down below to tell us what you would like help with next. But for now, I've been Haydon from Veloce, and we will see you in the next video. ABS, or anti-lock brake system, does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a system that allows you to apply as much brake pressure as you possibly want without the consequences of locking up the brakes and a trip straight for a wall. As an assist, it's one of the best, especially if